Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to today's daily quiz session with us. And before we begin with the session, I must remind you about the Google form that has been attached in the description box of this video. If you choose to fill up the form, we can get in touch with you immediately, arrange a one-on-one counseling session for you from our experts. So this could be the big step towards qualifying the UPSC Civil Services exam in one shot. So today, do take the big step. And now coming back to today's questions, the first question on your screen talks about the KIRAN scheme. It says KIRAN, that stands for Knowledge Involvement in Research Advancement Through Nurturing. Nurturing is hands-holding, to provide step-by-step training and opportunity to someone. In that context, what does the scheme refer to? Option A says it provides free pre-matric scholarship coaching to students of EWS, the economically weaker segment, which constitutes the financially marginalized segments of India. In fact, let's remember, from 2019 onwards, they have been getting 10% reservation in India on the basis of economic backwardness as a criteria. So, could this be the answer? Or B, attract and retain young scientists and discourage them from moving out of the country. Brain drain essentially refers to the situation of phenomena when talented, skilled labor force, it emigrates from the country to work in other countries, in foreign economies. So to prevent this phenomena from happening in the field of academic and research and development institutes. Or is it C, to upgrade the skills of tribal youth in various traditional modern activities, vocations? Or is it D, to bring gender parity, which means gender equality in science and technology sector by inducting more women or by including more women talent in the research and development domain? Naturally here D is the valid answer, because when we talk about the KIRAN scheme, let's remember the intention of the government was to tackle the gender gap which exists as of now in the Indian labor force or the workforce, and alongside in the STEM education field. What does STEM stand for? So STEM abbreviates for science, technology, engineering, mathematics, a set of higher education skills that are invariably related with better job opportunities, better labor opportunities in the formal segment of the economy. And in this light, the idea of the KIRAN scheme, this was initiated by the Department of Science and Technology to not only encourage young women scientists for taking up research work in India as well as universities abroad, but also to make sure that women who are presently workforce dropouts. Now, workforce dropouts are a category of women who, although were engaged in the formal sector jobs, but due to cultural, social, family responsibilities, they had to step out or they had to leave the job in between, which marks a break in their career. So hence they are known as workforce dropouts. This not only is a major obstacle in women empowerment, but also it drastically impacts the economic output of the entire economy. So to address this problem, to retain them back in the workforce, the KIRAN scheme was initiated. Now let's also remember that this is very closely related to 2020 and 2021 initiative of the Union government, once again under the aegis of Department of Science and Technology. And this was known as the Gati scheme. Remember that Gati scheme in India was created to promote gender advancement for transforming institutions. This Gati scheme, once again, was trying to promote gender parity in education institutes of higher excellence, so as to promote women labor force participation. And this in turn was inspired by a very unique initiative of United Kingdom. In fact, it was very successful in many European nations, which is known as the Athena Swan program. So D then becomes your right answer. And quickly, why was this question picked up for today's analysis? Is because of a PIB release which says how Swati scheme is being initiated by the government. In fact, more than a scheme, Swati is a portal that is created by the union government to work as a single online database where all Indian women and girls who are involved in the STEM field shall be represented. Once again, this is an initiative under Science for Women, Technology and Innovation. Now, recently, the Honorable Prime Minister also said that by 2047, Indian workforce shall proudly involve half women at least, which means we are drastically trying to push up the very low women participation in the workforce that's happening right now. And on that note, this question was picked up for you. Now let's look at the second question on the screen. The second question pertains to environment and biodiversity. Second question is a set of 3 statements, and the first statement talks about the new Maldhok Bird Sanctuary. Before we read the statements, a quick reminder, why is the question important? Because of an article in the Hindu which said the great Indian bustard, a big, large Indian bird, a species that has been experiencing reduction in its population consistently, now is on the verge of extinction because unfortunately, as per the wildlife authorities of India, very few of these have been spotted in the previous few years. And hence, this has become a cause of major concern. In this light, let's look at the statements now. First says, the new Maldhok Bird Sanctuary is an important conservation area, especially for the great Indian bustard. This is situated in Rajasthan. Half of the statement is valid because the new Maldhok Bird Sanctuary, in fact, is also known as the Great Indian Bustard Sanctuary. It's true. Let's also remember that it is also referred to as Jawaharlal Nehru. Bustard Sanctuary. This was established back in 1979. The area is to protect the population of Maldhok. Maldhok is also known as the Great Indian Bustard, another name for it. This is a large bird, in fact one of the heaviest birds in India. A rare and one of the heaviest birds of the Indian subcontinent. It is typically associated with a very arid or a semi-arid habitat. That's a very dry habitat. But the problem is, this bird sanctuary is not situated in Rajasthan. In fact, it is situated in the state of Maharashtra. Solapur is the area where it has been created. So the first statement then is invalid. Second statement talks about CITES. It says Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna is also referred to as Washington Convention. It is correct. Because when you talk about CITES, let's remember that CITES is a multilateral treaty which seeks to protect endangered animals and plants against the danger of hunting or poaching. It was decided in one of the very famous International Union for Conservation of Nature meeting convention that had taken place back in 1960s, and the CITES as such came into force back in 1975. So therefore, second statement is valid. Talking about the third statement, it describes CITES as a multilateral treaty to protect endangered plants and animals from threat of international trade. Valid statement. So therefore, here C will be the right answer. Only the first statement is incorrect. Let's proceed with our third question for the day. A set of 2 statements. It says keystone species are those that have an extremely high impact on a particular ecosystem relative, which means compared to its total population. It is a correct statement. The question has been picked up for you because of an article in the Hindu, again pertaining to GS3, Environment Biodiversity. The article spoke about how Kerala is now ready to create an interstate committee or a panel which will monitor, it will regulate movement of wild animals across the borders of states. The idea is to stop the problem of fragmentation of wildlife habitats. In fact, for a long time, the government has been investing money into creating wildlife corridors. The purpose is to allow wild animals to move easily from one region into another, which is an habitat which is a larger habitat for them. But because of boundaries, because of development of infrastructure, these animals are then experiencing a fragmentation. They aren't able to reach out to ecosystem, they aren't able to interact as much with each other. And that's the purpose, to make the committee so that wild animals do not experience this kind of interruption in their natural movement. Because recently, as we might be aware, the cases of wild animals and human conflict are extremely on the higher side. The number is rising every single day. And in this regard, the question is right here. The first statement defines the keystone species. It is a correct statement because keystone species in any given ecosystem is that critical species which is very, very critical to the biodiversity of that region. In fact, if the keystone species is removed, it will alter dramatically the entire functioning of that ecosystem. It really doesn't matter whether the keystone species is at the apex of the food chain or if it's a marginal size or a smaller animal or plant. What matters is that it in turn determines the integrity of entire ecosystem. So the first statement is valid. Also remember, for a long time in our wildlife discourse, we have been speaking about the battle between the ketone species and the invasive species phenomena. Now, invasive species, a very good example could be the African apple snail, which, although an invasive species for most of the territories, including the Andaman and Nicobar Island, was initially not a cause of concern. But slowly, invasive species like that, they start attacking and they start overtaking the population of native local species. And that becomes a problem. That completely changes the local biodiversity. And hence, in that regard, the second statement says elephant, sea otters and hummingbirds are certain examples of keystone species in India. A valid statement indeed, because yes, they are keystone species. So therefore, C is the right answer again. Both the statements are valid. With this, let's proceed to our fourth question of the day. It talks about which commonly occurring disease of rice is also referred to as the poor rice farmer's disease. Here the options are A, false smut. This is not the answer, but let's remember that when you talk about false smut, this is also interestingly known by two other names. One is called the Lakshmi disease, and the other is also Utupathy disease. It gives a very distinctive greenish velvetish color to the rice or the paddy crop, and hence it can cause major destruction to the germination of the plant, but it is not the right answer. Talking about B, Karnal blunt. The name was derived from Karnal in Haryana because it was here that the disease was first spotted. This again is not the poor rice farmer's disease. Talking about C, brown spot. Yes, brown spot is also referred to as the poor rice farmer's disease, but why? It is referred to as the poor farmer's disease because generally this is found in areas which have a very poor level of fertilization. In fact, we see this happening in areas which do not have enough fertility, which are not well fertilized, and hence the soil degrades in its nutrition quality, creating a situation where the plants start developing a fungal infection which would initially cause small brown spots, which then enlarge to become huge distinctive spots. And C then is your right answer. Talking about D, D could be caused by various funguses or bacteria as well. Bald rot disease, very often associated with a cotton plant. In fact, this was also a major reason, the problem of bollworm, which led to the development of genetically modified BT cotton in India. So now with this, let's proceed with why was the question taken up today. The question came from the Economic Times, which said one study has identified a species known as nematode species. This is very interesting and distinctive because this species has the ability to protect crops naturally without the use or without the need of any other pesticide, herbicide or any other medication. And hence you had the question. Now let's check which PYQ have we brought for you. This is from 2017. It says, in which one of the following states is the Pakhui Wildlife Sanctuary situated? A. Arunachal Pradesh. B. Manipur. Is it C. Meghalaya or is it D. Nagaland? Indeed, the Pakhui Wildlife Sanctuary is situated in the foothills of eastern Himalayas. It is situated in one of the northeastern states and the valid answer is A. Arunachal Pradesh. Let's also remember that this Pakhui Wildlife Sanctuary is also referred to as the Pakhe Wildlife Sanctuary or Tiger Reserve. In fact, it was given the status of a tiger reserve in 2002 itself. And it is also very, very popular for ecotourism because it has a rich biodiversity, particularly known for the population of hornbill. With this, let's see which fact do we have to analyze for today. And we are talking in reference to art and culture. We are talking about the Gandhara School of Art. We know that India is a hotbed of culture hybridization. We know that from the very beginning, that's right from the start of the civilization, Indian culture has been a fusion between the local cultures and the outside cultures, also often referred to as the exogenic or foreign cultures. In this regard, when the beautiful Greco-Buddhism fused together as a combination of the Indo-Greek manifestation of art, the Greco-Roman manifestation of art, when this combined with the local Buddhist sculpturing and art, it fused together and gave birth to the Greco-Buddhist or Gandhara school of art and sculpture. It is very, very predominant because it is referred to as an example of India's cultural syncretism. Syncretism is when a local culture absorbs a foreign culture. And this is exactly what happened because the local forms of Buddhist art and sculpture, they fused into ancient Greek art to give birth to the Gandhara school of art. It was most predominant in the northwest parts of India. If you see in contemporary times, it would be the modern Afghanistan area and the modern northwestern states of India. Particularly famous were regions such as Taxila, extremely well known for Gandhara art, as well as Peshawar, Begram, Bamiyan. Let's also remember that what was actually so unique about this school of art? What was unique was that it was known for beautiful sculptures and arts of Lord Buddha, along with many bodhisattvas. That was the most distinctive part of this art. It is known to have flourished from the 1st century BC to the 4th century CE. Let's also remember that it is known for using exquisite black stone and stucco. Stucco is almost like a plaster-like substance which is also very popular in modern day architecture. And as I said, the most distinctive feature was the creation of natural style of, very, very simplistic style of Buddha and Bodhisattva. But not just that, alongside it also portrayed many other Greek kings such as the god Apollo's image. A very simple, realistic style of painting and sculpturing. Particularly when we look at the famous samples of the Gandhara school of sculpture, we see Lord Buddha with a halo around the head. We also see the wavy hair creation. Apart from that, elaborate ornaments and draping around Buddha, a particular style of draping of the garments. And hence, it is one of the very well-known schools of fusion art and sculpture that exists in India. And on that note, I would take your leave on today's session. Thank you so much to all of you.